Well, another year's come and gone, and I have to say that 2019 will be one of my favorite years of fishing ever. I didn't do as much fishing inshore as what I've done in the past, and a lot of that's because I've got a bigger boat and I finally got it running this year. But we did get some good days to do some gigging, a little bit of commercial gigging. And while it was an excellent year for speckled trout, certainly did a lot more gigging than I did speckled trout fishing. We did get a lot of sheepshead this year, but there was plenty of really nice flounder to be had. Unfortunately, Hurricane Dorian took out a couple of weeks or so of gigging, and then they shut down the season a little early, so we didn't get the real big push. But I even got my wife out for a little bit of speckled trout fishing, and it was good. We even got our limit one day. Also, one of the highlights at the end of this year was the squid fishing, and I did pretty well around our creeks, around our place down here, and it was real fun. I did most of my inshore fishing in Hatteras this year, except for a couple of trips, including one to go see my buddy Matt that I hadn't seen in 20 years that I've known since we were both kids. Most of the nearshore fishing I did on my rig was coming and going from the deep. We did a little jigging on the wrecks and drifting over the wrecks, and even a little bit of king mackerel fishing. And then, of course, I got on John's boat, Smuggler, and did some commercial king mackerel with him, and got on them with a few other friends throughout the year. I spent most of 2018 rebuilding my big boat and finally got to fish her in 2019 a good bit. First part of the year, did a little fishing in January with Michael and Clint, and we caught some blackfin and the odd mahi out there. Did some fishing with Shane and Graham and some other buddies throughout February and March, and had a lot of fun. It was on this trip that I hit a log 42 miles from the inlet, messed up my running gear on the starboard side, but we still had fun cranking on some fish that day. It was cool getting to fish with lots of my friends this year and catching a good variety of fish offshore. I even got my neighbor down for a trip. She had fun, not only doing gigging the night before, but getting an offshore trip in. After all the hard work on rebuilding the boat, it was really good to get out there and put in a little over 300 hours this year on the motors. I also got to do a little fishing with AD on the Magic boat with his girlfriend and father and some of the locals, little Rom and Mary. Also got on John's boat for offshore and of course with Graham. I got to do lots of deep dropping this year, and the majority of it was on Graham's boat, Prowler, doing commercial deep dropping for the first half of the year. We caught lots of snowies and blue line tiles, and got some golden tiles throughout the year, and we also got some nice yellow edge grouper, and even caught three fish on one hook. Had a really good time fishing with them and learned a lot. We did multiple overnighters throughout the year, including three back-to-back overnighters, and it was just a Fantastic opportunity to learn more about deep dropping and the critters of the deep. Did a little deep dropping on my rig as well and caught some nice fish. This summer my wife had a business trip to Amsterdam and I decided to tag along with the rod and reel. I got to fish in one of the local lakes and we caught lots of redfin perch and European pike. We used all sorts of different types of tackle, crankbaits, soft baits, hard baits, live baits, and caught lots of fish. I had so much fun with Jerome that I decided to also fish with him in the North Sea where we caught lots of sea bass, different types of mackerel, and cod. It was a real fun trip and I was glad I got to fish the area. For our 20th anniversary, Susan and I went to French Polynesia and I took lots of tackle. We started the trip in Raite and fished around the shoreline and caught lots of little species fish. But the highlight of the trip was when we went to Bora Bora. Caught a couple of wahoo on this trip as well as a couple of yellowfin. One of the yellowfin was pretty decent size and it was real fun reeling it in. The best part of the trip was catching 2 blue marlin. This first marlin put up quite a good fight. Also did a good bit of dancing in the water. Second marlin didn't put up quite as much fight, but it was still fun, and it was also the first day that I had ever reeled in 2 blue marlin by myself. I even sent a message to Susan telling her that I didn't want the third one. I was tired. We also went to Moria and I did a little fishing there as well. Did a lot of jigging, got my first dogtooth tuna. Also caught some yellowfins off there and did the traditional French Polynesian buoy fishing. Learned a lot from the locals. We did lots of snorkeling, saw lots of fish, had a great time. On the way back to Tahiti, used right in our backyard a little sabiki and caught lots of new species as well. Of all the fish I caught this year, catching my first swordfish ever was the highlight of the year. Me and Brian scheduled a trip with Jackie out of Marshallburg, NC, and we went 2 for 7 on swordfish that day. It was a great learning experience, and I hope to catch one on my rig soon. 2019 will always be a year that I'll never forget. I had many personal bests, and I had a phenomenal time fishing with lots of old as well as new friends, and got to fish a couple places around the world. I'd like to thank Blue Action Tackle for the awesome bottom fishing rigs they make, as well as the swordfish leaders and the king mackerel rigs. I also like to thank Eyecatcher Lures for all their trolling gear, including that awesome bait shower, Super Dart, and the Hatteras Marlin lures. I'd also like to thank Daddy Mac Lures for all the jigs that they sent and the fish that we got to catch while we were jigging over the wrecks and in the deep for tuna. I don't see how 2020 can be any better than 2019, but I look forward to fishing with all my friends, and I hope we catch just as many fish in 2020 as what we did this year.